2 mugs on the counter, both empty, both washed. And in my notebook, under everything, I wrote about Eleanor and the ring, in a handwriting that isn't mine. You put the mug down and looked at it. I know that look. It wasn't the look of someone tasting something. I'm sorry. I know what that cost you. D. I don't know anyone whose name starts with D. Or I do, and I paid for it. I remember pieces of the night the way you remember a dream at noon, going thin even as you reach for them. A man in a weathered coat, a notebook twice as thick as mine, coffee that was warm, but nothing more. Him saying my name like it was an old word in his mouth, and then nothing. A clean edge where the rest should be. He carried me to bed, washed the mugs, wrote me a line, and left. I pick up the pen and write under his line, "Who are you?" Not a question exactly, more like a note left in the dark, the way he left his. I close it, look up at the high shelf where the watch sits. Quiet this morning, cold, innocent. That's the first thing I do every morning, read the notebook, page after page of a woman erasing herself one stranger at a time. I keep it cheerful on purpose. Otherwise, I'd end up talking to the clocks. I don't think about D again for 2 hours. Then the bell over the door rings. A woman walks in carrying her dead mother in her fist. She's holding something so tightly, her knuckles have gone white, and she doesn't put it down. That's the first thing I notice. People usually can't wait to set their burden on my counter. This one carries it like, if she opens her hand, it'll fly away. She's maybe 48. Sensible haircut, a cardigan with a tissue balled up in the sleeve, which is the uniform of a woman who's been crying in cars between errands. There's a particular flatness to people in the months after they bury a parent. Not the sharp grief, the administrative grief, the grief of forms and phone calls and standing in a parent's kitchen wondering what to do with 40 years of saved rubber bands. "Are you the woman who reads things?" she says. Not really a question. "I mend things," I say. "Reading happens by accident. What's your name?" "Ruth." She glances at the door like she might still leave. They always do that. "My mother died in March. Catherine. She was 76. It was slow and then it was fast, the way it goes." "I'm sorry." Everyone says that. Ruth's mouth does something complicated. "I'm not sure I am. Sorry. That's actually why I'm here. I'm not sure what I feel, and I have never in my life not known what I feel, and it's making me..." She stops, steadies. I need to ask her something, and she's dead. So I came to you instead, which is insane. And I've decided not to think about how insane it is until later. "Sound plan," I say. "What's in your hand, Ruth?" She looks down at her own fist like she forgot it was there. Then, slowly, she opens it. It's a stone, a gray one, river smooth, the size of a plum, the kind you'd step over on a beach, without a second glance. Ordinary in every possible way, except that this woman has carried it through a city to put it in front of a stranger. "My mother kept this her entire life," Ruth says, "in her hand when she died. The hospice nurse had to take it out of her fingers afterward. I have a photograph of her from 1970, and you can see it on the windowsill behind her. It was always there. On every windowsill of every house we ever lived in, and we moved a lot. We moved more than any family I knew. I never understood why, but the stone always came, and she never once told me what it was." She sets it on the counter. It rocks a little and goes still. I asked her when I was small. She said, "It's just a stone, love." I asked her when I was a teenager, and she went so cold I never asked again. I am 48 years old, and I have spent my whole life feeling like there was a room in my mother I was never allowed into. Her voice cracks, finally. She loved me. I think she loved me. But there was always a distance, a held breath, like part of her was somewhere else. She presses the tissue to the corner of her eye. "My wedding day," she says suddenly. "Here, I'll give you my wedding day. That's the one I can't get past." I'm in the dress, I'm about to walk in, and I go to find her, and she's alone in a side room, just standing there, holding her own two hands. And I said, "Mom, are you crying? That's so sweet." And she looked at me. Ruth's voice goes very careful. She looked at me like she'd forgotten I existed. For 1 second, on my wedding day, my own mother surfaced from somewhere so deep and so far away that I startled her, like there was someone else she'd been getting ready for. Then she smiled and fixed my veil, and it was gone. But I have turned that 1 second over every day for 20 years. So, that's the splinter, I suppose. I need to know where she went, and whether I was ever enough to bring her all the way back. I finish it for her, gently, because that's the job. Whether you were enough for her. Ruth's face crumples. "Yes," she whispers. "There, you found it fast." I always find it fast. That's not the hard part. Here's what I need you to know before I touch it. Some objects talk easily. A wedding ring wants to talk. Rings are extroverts. They've been on the loud hand for 30 years. A letter someone never sent. A stone is different. A stone a woman carried in silence for 50 years and never once explained. That thing is welded shut. The secret has had half a century to grow into the rock, the way a tree grows around a nail, until the nail is part of the wood. To get down to it, I'll have to go further than I went for Eleanor. Much further. And I already know. I knew the second Ruth opened her fist that I'm going to pay for this one. Not a cup of coffee. Something with weight. Something I'll feel the shape of for the rest of my life by the size of the hole it leaves. I think about saying no. I'm allowed. I say no more often than people would guess. Then I look at her. The tissue in the sleeve. A whole life spent locked outside one door. "I can tell you what this is," I say. "It'll cost me something. I'm choosing that, so you don't have to feel a thing about it. That part's mine. Sit down." She sits. I roll my sleeves. Theater. And I close my hand around the stone. The surface first. The loud part. Except, this stone has no loud part. This stone is quiet. That's the first thing that hits me. 50 years of deliberate, muscular, around-the-clock quiet. A woman holding her breath for half a century. I feel Catherine's hand around this stone 10,000 times. In hospital chairs, at kitchen sinks, at the back of a church. Always the same grip, always the same held breath. And now I understand the moving. You can leave a house, but the river comes with you in your pocket. So it never mattered where they lived. Under the quiet, the love. There's Ruth, small, 4 years old, asleep in a chair. And Catherine looking at her with so much love it has edges. It could cut you. Loved like a wound. That part is true. But was I loved was never the real question. The real question is why the distance? And the distance is further down. So I go down. The light changes. I'm somewhere cold and bright, outdoors, early. That gray hour before the sun commits to anything. A riverbank, reeds, water moving slow and brown. A much younger Catherine, 25 maybe, on her knees in the wet grass. She is making a sound I have heard only a few times in my life and never want to hear again. She is burying something. Not deep. She can't. The ground's too hard and her hands shake too badly. She's building a small cairn out of river stones, one at a time, over a place no bigger than a loaf of bread. And she's saying a name, over and over, under her breath, like a prayer she is furious at. Annie, Annie, Annie. It lands in me all at once, not as a story, as a blow. There was a first child, before Ruth, a daughter, Annie, small enough to still be carried, old enough to run ahead, that particular age where they are fast and fearless and certain that the world will catch them. A summer afternoon, a river. One moment Catherine turned away, a second, less than a second, the length of time it takes to pick something up off the grass. And when she turned back, the water was moving and Annie was gone. I don't go further into it than that. I feel the shape of it, the running, the water, the terrible, ordinary second of not looking, and I stop there. That's enough. That's more than enough. This was 50 years ago. No leaflet, no counselor, no group that met on Tuesdays. A woman lost a child and the world said it was an accident. These things happen. You have to go on. So Catherine went on. She just never forgave herself for going on. And she never told another living soul, because to say it out loud would be to ask someone else to carry the verdict. Catherine had already decided the verdict was hers alone. I am still in the stone when I feel something shift. A door opening somewhere inside the memory, the way a room changes when someone enters it. Catherine is at a kitchen window. It's night, late. Her shoulders are going. Her free hand is pressed flat against the glass. And in her coat pocket, closed around the stone, the other hand gripping, always gripping. She hears a small foot on the stair, turns too fast, wipes her face, says, "Go back to bed, love." And the child goes. Never knowing she walked in on the 1 minute a day her mother allowed herself to come apart. That's the thing about a held secret. It doesn't live in one place. It lives in every room, every window. And she took one stone from the bank, from the water's edge. Not to remember. She would never stop remembering. She took it so her hands would never be as empty as her arms were. So there would always be one small, heavy thing she didn't let go of. The only weight of Annie she got to keep. 2 years later, she had Ruth. And she loved Ruth with everything she had left, which was a great deal. But there was a room she could not take Ruth into, because the room had Annie in it. And Catherine had decided, the way a mother decides when grief has no other shape, that Ruth would grow up light, unhaunted, free of the river, even if the price was a held breath at every windowsill for 50 years, even if the price was a daughter who felt locked outside a room and never knew the room was a grave. The distance Ruth felt her whole life was not the absence of love. It was the presence of a sister she was never told about. I open my eyes. The lamp is too bright. The watch on the high shelf is ticking, fast now, faster than for Eleanor. Warm, I can feel the heat of it from across the room like a hand held near my face, and something inside me is going. I can feel it, leaving. Painless, like a tooth that was already dead. I don't know what it is yet. I only know it has weight. It's stone-sized. Zoe, Ruth is half out of her chair. Your face. What did you feel? What is it? What is it? So I tell her. I tell her about the riverbank and the gray hour and a girl named Annie, small, old enough to run, not old enough to know rivers don't give back 50 years ago before Ruth was anywhere in the world. I watch it hit her, the gasp, the hand flat to her own chest. I had a sister, and nobody told me. And I keep going, because if I stop here, she falls into the gap and doesn't climb out. The stone is from the river, I say, from the little pile she made over Annie. She took one so she'd always have something to hold. That's why it lived on every windowsill. That's why it was in her hand at the end. She was holding both of you when she died, Ruth. She only had the one hand free for the one she lost. Ruth is crying hard now, the whole body kind, and I let her. The distance, I say, when she comes up for air. The room you could never get into. She built that wall for you, so you'd grow up without the river, without a dead sister riding on your back. You weren't shut out because you didn't matter. You were shut out because you mattered more than anything she had ever held, including the stone. Ruth's hands come up to her mouth. My wedding, she says. Oh God, the side room. She looks straight through me, and I spent 20 years thinking my mother checked out on the happiest day of my life. She wasn't checking out. She was watching you in the white dress, I say, and doing the arithmetic she did on every good day of her life. One daughter here, grown, radiant, getting married. One daughter who never got to wear white at all. You startled her out of the 1 minute of grief she allowed herself on your day, because your day was exactly the day Annie never got. And then she fixed your veil, because that was the deal. She never broke it. She should have told me, Ruth says. We could have carried it together. You're right, I say. She was wrong about how, but not about why. Were you enough for her? You were the thing she stayed quiet for. You were her second chance, and she died making sure you'd never know what the first one cost. Ruth picks up the stone, holds it the way her mother held it, and her grip fits the wear in it exactly. 50 years of one woman's hand, and now a second. I'm naming her properly, Ruth says. Annie. She's going in the family record. My kids will know they had an aunt. We are done being quiet in this family. She looks at me, fierce and soaked, and somehow younger than when she walked in. What do I owe you? Meant something small for me one day? I say. We'll call it even. She's at the door, the bell still swinging when she turns around. Thank you, Zoe. It doesn't stop me cold this time. I'm braced for it. But it still lands. A woman who walked in, locked outside a room, walking out with a sister. The door closes. The bell goes still. I just don't get to choose who walks out lighter. Then I go to save what I can, before I find out what's gone. I sit with the pen and decide, today, before I even know what I've lost, that I'm going to write down my mother's face. Catherine and her river have put me in that kind of mood. I want my own mother on the page, just in case. I close my eyes to picture her, and there's nothing there. Not a blur, not a half, nothing. I reach for my mother's face the way your foot reaches for a step that isn't there in the dark, and it just keeps going down. I have the facts. Dark hair. She left just before my grandmother died. She was afraid of the gift the way I'm afraid of the watch. I have the file on my mother. I do not have the face. I traded my mother's face for Annie's name. I open the notebook. I write it down. Cost, My mother's face. Kept the facts. Lost the face. Then I opened to Dee's line. The one from this morning. The one I've been carrying all day. And I read it again. I'm sorry. I know what that cost you. He knew, even then, before I did. Whatever he is to me, whatever I paid to forget it, he knew. I pick up the pen. If the gift keeps taking pieces of me, is there a last piece?